Welcome to another episode of Bobble Pod, and happy spring to all our listeners and all our viewers on the
Yay!
podcast. Absolutely love April. Best time of the year for me, my favorite month. We are bringing to you creative and effective digital marketing strategies part two. So, anybody who listened to our last podcast should realize that we did a lengthy talk, all three of us, about creating an effective digital marketing strategy. There are a number of topics that we discussed, and from that, we highlighted that was a lot more depth and detail that we could go into to provide our listeners more education and more insights. So, this month, our focus is doing on the second part of that and going into a lot more of that detail that we want to. Before I begin, obviously, I'm Manny Singh, CEO of Bobble Digital.
I'm Claire Daniels, CEO of Trio Media.
Hello everyone, I'm Anushna Takanyan, co-founder and CEO of Burnway.
It's great to have obviously Claire and Anush here today, and I can't wait to kind of really get into it. Before we do that, we're just going to do a quick recap for a couple of minutes on what we did in part one and some of the key topics we highlighted. If you haven't listened to it, I suggest pause this recording and go back to the other episode 5, listen to that first, and then come back to this one. Otherwise, some of it might not make as much sense. So, some of the topics that we covered in part one were why is it important to have a marketing strategy? We all talked about why it's quite important right now, especially with the global pandemic, thinking short term and the impact that's having on specifically SME businesses who might be struggling more financially against, the larger corporations. Where to begin in terms of, you need to look at your business objectives and align them with your marketing objectives and how to go about creating those objectives, making them smart and measurable. What process you should follow as a business in terms of key elements to consider, such as your audience, your budget, your website and physical presence as an organization, who are the competitors in your market. And that was one of the topics that we highlighted where we could go into a lot more elements when we talk about measurement and reporting and insights. Um, we talked about like once you have your strategy, how do you need to follow up or adapt it? We talked about the difference between making a video without a strategy planned beforehand and those that have introduced video as part of that content. Because as you may have realized from a lot of the talks we've done, and without it being intentional, and I think Anush will agree with me here, is that video has played a prominent role in some of the discussions that we discussed because it is such a key valuable channel moving forward. We talked about how to create a video marketing strategy in line with your overall digital marketing strategy, defining your positioning and messaging as an organization, which Claire did an amazing piece about in the last talk, defining, choosing your target audience and how to do that and how you can understand who your customers are and how to identify them online, understanding which digital channels or what wider marketing channels work best for you as an organization. And finally, we talked about basically how to calculate budget because we know that it is a pandemic. Businesses are stretched. Some are benefiting from recovery loans here in the UK, but from a global perspective, businesses are stretched in terms of budget. So, how to make that budget go further and how to make it utilized. So that's a quick roundup from our part one. Again, please do go back and view it if you haven't to get a recap. And today we've got a number of topics again that we're going to go into a lot more detail to really kick that off. And the first topic we're really going to kick off with, and I hope we can expand out this, is how to create that compelling story. I know, Claire, you really went into a lot of detail in terms of defining your positioning and messaging, but I think a lot of it comes down to as businesses need to create that compelling story in terms of for their users and customers to follow.
Yeah, so something that I wanted to talk about is a model that we use a lot with our clients that really helps them to define that storytelling and the positioning and messaging of the business. So it's developed by Gartner and it's called a positioning framework. So you will actually find it if you go online and Google that Gartner positioning framework. We'll also share it with you for anyone that watches the podcast on YouTube. You'll be able to see it there. But I am just going to quickly walk through the steps. So if anyone wants to grab a notepad and pen and start thinking about it, hopefully this will be a really useful exercise for you. So the first thing to think about is who your product, solution, proposition, whatever it may be, is for. So who is your target customer? And you really need to think about getting specific here because we want you to find your niche. Because when you find your niche, that storytelling element is going to become so much easier because you know exactly who you're creating content for. So, for example, if you're B2B, it's not for businesses or for SMEs or enterprise clients, it's, you know, what sector are these businesses in? Who is the person within that business? You know, really thinking about who that person is that your proposition is for. And following on from that, what is their need? So looking at providing a statement of their need or opportunity. So for example, at Trio Media, so we are for small businesses that need a marketing partner and they need a resource. And sorry, I know I've just said small businesses and I've encouraged you to be specific, but I'm just being quick with it here. But looking for that need in terms of they need to outsource their marketing. They need their marketing to be effective. They need to generate sales from their online business, for example. And then we go on to look at a want for them as well. So what do they want? And the way that need or opportunity is, well, I need online sales and I need someone to help me do that, but I want to work with a company that I trust and that I get on well with. So you can kind of clearly define the different like expectations of your prospective customer. The model then goes through looking at what actually is the product or service you provide, so naming it, and what category it sits in. So the product is what, you know, what is it that you're providing to the market, and what is the compelling reason to buy it? You know, if you had to think of one key benefit and make a statement on this is what it does, what would that thing be? And again, you know, you really look at being concise with this, taking back the layers to get to that real crux of what it is that's going to resonate with people. We then go into unlike, and we look at a competitor at this stage. So unlike your primary competitor, you do what? What's your statement of primary differentiation? So we're looking at the competitor that you are most similar to. We've spoken a lot about competition, and that's something we will be touching upon more again in this episode. So you will always have kind of direct and indirect competitors, because you've probably got someone you're most similar to in your space, but you've also got competitors that you aspire to be like, that are kind of not in your current area at the moment. But really encouraging you to understand who is that key competitor that you're kind of going to lose the most business to? Who is that person, and how are you different from them? We do find that this is an area that businesses struggle with, because they go, well, I'm not that different. And don't get me wrong, sometimes people know exactly why they are different, but you also get in kind of non-disruptive industries, a lot of businesses that go, well, yeah, it's this or it's that. Is it price? You know, are you able to be cheaper than your competition? Are the quality of your materials better? Are you different just because of who runs the business? You know, is the CEO, is the founder of the business someone with a unique personality or lots of experience? Is it that you have certain sustainability credentials or other type of qualifications or accreditations that set you apart? Understand what that key differentiating point between the alternative provider in the market is, and sell that thing. So by the time you've gone through this framework, we always add on an and at the end, and your and is your final statement of what's something that hasn't fit into this framework that we really want to talk about, we really want to add on to. So and what, and you know, we help save businesses money, or we help save the environment, or whatever it may be. So really making sure that you can still get that piece in there, and that all put together really starts building out, this is what all your messaging should be around. You now know exactly who your customer is when you start looking at audience and how to define your target audience and how to communicate with them, because you understand what their need is. You also understand what they want, you know, personally, what they're hoping to get out of the relationship working with you. You understand your competition, because you're going to have gone and reviewed that, and really knowing who are people buying instead of me. You understand what differentiates you from the competition, and that is what makes up the messaging that you put out there. So going through that model is really, really useful exercise for business of any size, whether you're a startup, whether you're an enterprise business. I've done this with a range of organizations, established 8-figure turnover businesses, but I've also done it with startups, you know, who are just getting going, and it's always helped to clarify where we should go with the messaging and the storytelling. And so I'm interested now to kind of pass that out to my co-hosts around the storytelling piece and see how you've maybe used models or elements of this to help create storytelling in the work that you're doing as well.
First of all, want to say that what you have shared is actually really amazing. And just to add to this, I would say that for the video, storytelling is the most important part. I mean, we can create a strategy, have everything in their place, the goals, target audience, everything ready. But if there is no story behind your video, it actually would not catch the clients. So basically, when we are just starting, like a lot of clients, when wanted to create their first story, the first thing that actually they are doing, they are trying to give a lot of information about their business in their videos. But what actually happened is they are making very boring to viewers, so they pretty not interested to hear a lot of information about businesses, about the product. What they actually is more interested to hear is how that product can help them. So here is how storytelling is coming to help and give a solution of this, because video storytelling is a marketing tactic that actually helping you to tell a story behind your brand, behind your product, behind your company. And it's helping to get the heart of the clients, because you can get be emotional, be connected to your brand, get them to be interested to hear more, to watch your video again. So basically, I would like to share today a few, let's say, techniques of how to create a video which tells a story. So first of all, it's creating a strong arc. So you need to have really effective beginning, middle, and end. Each of these parts are so important in the video. There's no like only the beginning. It's important because you need to catch and grab the attention of your viewers. Every part is important, because especially your call to action is going to be at the end of the video. So you need to grab your clients till the end so they can see the call to action and react to them. So in this case, I would suggest to have to make it easy for your audience to follow your story. So it needs to be very appealing. It needs to be very catchy. I would suggest also just another tip to make your characters very lovable and reliable. No matter they are live characters or animated characters, they need to be very cute, and so people could be so interested to hear them, to be connected with them. Another tip is to make it visually very beautiful, because it's not only about the story, but your video actually needs to be very catchy for people to watch it till the end or want to watch it again. As I said again, and I will want to mention once again, you need to focus on emotions. And by saying emotions, it's not necessarily need to be only warm emotions. You can have anger, you can have, I don't know, joy, sadness, everything. But all these emotions are so important to highlight in your videos, so people need to be connected with them. And the last maybe tip on this, I would suggest to be very natural and informal. Of course, unless your video is not only for the target audience, which are very corporate and stuffy, you don't need to sound stuffy and corporate. Just relax, be informal, be friendly in your videos, because that's the way that people could want to hear you more. Do not need to just force with your voice or just be so fake. Be natural, be friendly. This is maybe the most important part for video storytelling, so people could really love what you are creating and want to share it after watching it.
That's amazing, and that's such a good tip. And it made me think about that arc that you talked about in the beginning, middle, and end. And one of the things we were discussing that we wanted to touch upon more was how to know when to select the right channels. And so, Manny, I'm interested to come to you in terms of how you would relate that storytelling into, for example, paid media ads, Google ads, ads on Facebook. How do you use storytelling to help structure those ads?
But that's why this whole element that you both have just talked about is so key to anyone listening right now to the podcast. Using that Garter model, understanding how you can implement that into video creative. We've talked about this plenty of times before, how important video content is key to getting your potential customers' attention, and understanding your customers is quite key. It makes our job as a media agency so much easier to kind of understand that, because you've got to have that full integration from brand, storytelling, messaging, how that's delivered via video to different platform. By understanding your audience, specifically by going through that process of the Garter model, you know who your audiences are. We actually use a model called Global Web Index. So if anyone's listening, Global Web Index, you can sign up for free, but you are limited by the information you get. But the benefit of a platform like that is you get to understand and take that audience in terms of who your customers, what they're wanting. And this research goes out and puts those questions to them to see how different audiences, consumers around the world, UK based or within Europe, actually, react to that. So what are their intentions to buying products? How are they influenced by B2B purchases? What media channels do they consume more? If it's social media or YouTube, what kind of content are they consuming on media, on YouTube, or kind of video content? Is it funny? Is it memes? Is it more educational? Are they there to buy? That helps us then define the different and select the different channels, because what I find and what I get a lot is companies come up to us saying, we want to do a PPC campaign, but in the end we say, well, actually you're best off doing an SEO and a social campaign, because you didn't know who your audiences were, you didn't know how to tell a story, and you could tell that story better through creating quality content through channels like organic search. That differentiation between knowing which channel select is very, very difficult. If you're still unsure, the best thing to do is be agile and test different elements of messaging. So when you get into different channels, let's say paid search, you have to do text ads. That's the ad format you have to run. So if you're doing search-based ads where you're focused on specific keywords, it's all about the text ads. Your quality score is directly impacted by the content you have on site and the keyword that you're targeting, and how that keyword resonates within the actual text ad of what you're delivering. And you need to make sure that, in the head 1, 2, and 3, you focus more content around the keyword that's going to drive the attention. But you have 2 description lines within there. And that's where you can start incorporating this storytelling and kind of messaging within that kind of format. You can then create other specific content through site extensions and add extensions on the site to drive into other content pages that might be of relevance to what you're trying to push. When it comes to video and social, I'd say they're becoming a lot more integrated right now, because YouTube is a social channel. TikTok is, we've talked about this before, how relevant it is. Social media, anyone who's on a social platform is consuming more and more video content. From an organic perspective, and I think, Claire, you'd be able to best position to give your viewpoint in terms of how you communicate that message organically. But from a paid perspective, it's, focusing on, hitting those pain points. So if you've created a video that has some kind of emotional reaction, whether it's sad or anger or a thought-provoking reaction that, okay, no, I'm not secure. For example, you might be a legal firm focusing on wills, targeting a particular age demographic to make them think about the future or insurance, etc. Then you want to pull on those specific strings that will resonate with your storytelling and communicating that through that video format across social. So it's the better the creative is, the better your ads perform across video and social platform. Images can give you a specific call to action, but videos allow you to, in a very, very short way, explain and tag and take that whole process of storytelling, that Garter model, and the strategy and tips that Anusha just talked about to actually get your potential customers to get to your website, to complete inquiry form, or actually buy your product or service, whether you're e-commerce or not.
Yeah, and I think, in summary almost of the point that you're making there is, brands that know how to do storytelling well are going to perform far better. So when you know what your messaging is, you know the story you have to tell, and that is portrayed across every channel, no matter whether it's paid, organic, website, video, you will naturally outperform competition who are not clear on what their targeting is and not clear on who their audience is. And you raised there about the organic side, and certainly and another exercise that we actually do when we're speaking to people about their websites, for example, if we're doing a website redesign, that we've started doing is top 20 reasons. And we basically go through 5 reasons people will buy from you, 5 reasons people won't, 5 reasons people will come back, and 5 reasons that they don't. So really getting to understand now, what are the challenges of your target audience? You know, what is going to make them not buy? Because actually we need to answer that in the website copy, you know, so this all becomes part of the storytelling, is addressing those issues. So for example, we even did it for ourselves as a company, and one of our key challenges was people don't understand how long it takes for SEO to work. So we've now written a long blog about that, and we're putting that content on our SEO page to help answer those objections. So when people are thinking, am I going to get in touch with this company? Am I going to see results? We very clearly are saying, this is how long it's going to take. We then use things like testimonials and social proof to help prove that point that we're trying to make as well. And then you find that the reasons people will or won't come back are often different things, because the reason people will keep coming back might be great customer service, but they haven't experienced that yet at the time they're looking to buy, so they don't know that yet. So it's really about joining all this up to your overall values and message and storytelling, and make sure it's portrayed across every channel. So starting from, you know, if we're specifically looking at digital channels, as this is about digital marketing strategies, starting with your website, then looking at all the different tools you're going to use to drive traffic there. You know, naturally SEO is going to be relevant to the content on the page. So if the content on the page is telling your story, the SEO is going to help tell that as well. With your organic social media, you can quite easily apply that top 20 reasons like formatting to social media. Why will people buy from us? Why won't they? And how are we going to portray that in our social posts and everything that we put out there? And then pairing that all up with the video content and the strategy as well. And if straight away, you know, I feel like it actually sounds quite easy. You know, if you know who you are and you know who your audience is, this should become easy, but it's something that can be a struggle. And I think it's one of those, it's a mountain to climb, you know, for businesses thinking, where do I start? But, you know, one piece at a time. I have a client that says, how do you eat an elephant? And they say, by one bit at a time, because it's a mammoth task, but you just break it up into bite-sized chunks. So, you know, going through and just understanding bit by bit, audience, competition, messaging, our values, who we are, what we do. Once you do that, everything else after that will be really, really simple.
I think that brings us perfectly, because the other part we talked about in part 1 was we went into audience budget measurements, and we said we'd talk more about types of models people can use or businesses can use within specific channels. So specific channels across, you know, all elements across video all the way through to organic. The model we kind of use here to kind of help differentiate that and actually make that is our own. So if anyone goes on our site, it's there, it's plain sight. We call it the peer model: plan, implement, evaluate, repeat. We're very data focused here at Bobble in terms of we take the data of the audiences and understand who they are. I touched upon that literally about 5 minutes ago in terms of using stuff like Global Web Index to really understand the audience habits. But from that, we understand which channels and what time of day they're spending their time on. If you understand your audience and know who that is, you can then understand which channels they're spending time on. So our model then is planning is all about strategy, understanding the audience. Then it's implementing it, it's being agile. So the term agile has been thrown around the industry for a while. We position ourselves as an agile agency, but people always ask me, what does that even mean? It means that we're agile in our approach, that because we know that the audiences that have been identified know how and know what their media consumption is, we trial those different platforms to see where the best results come from, because it's all about ROI to us, return on investment a client is spending. And if you're an SME in particular, whether you're, you know, B2C or B2B, in the current environment, budgets are squeezed. And it's making that element work more effectively by adapting and being more transparent with budget to say, right, we're going to take budget out of PPC and put it into social media. We're going to take out social media and put it more into SEO because we're getting better results organically based on what people are searching for. And then you got the evaluation piece, which is where, attribution modeling is really, really important, reporting. And then it's finally the last bit is repeating that process completely. So there are models out there that you can use. There's the ADA model that a lot of people use, especially in terms of attracting that. But when I looked out there, I really decided that we had to create our own model that differentiate it. And it's as basic and simple as it sounds. It's the overarching element that works across all the clients that we implement. And if you want to know more, just head to the site and read about the model and take it and use it yourselves. It works, and it works effectively.
And so one thing that I thought would be interesting to talk about is we're discussing these models that help form the strategy. But then I think something that is going to be really important to everyone is obviously understanding the results and measurements. And do you guys have any particular tips or models that you use for measuring the success of the campaigns?
I can talk about the video part of it. Actually, last time I talked a bit about how to measure the success of the videos. And I said that actually there are many ways to measure it, but what actually you need to take into account is your video achieving the goal that you have set at the beginning of when you are just creating video marketing strategy. But I can share with you several, let's say 6 maybe ways of measuring a success in generic, so you can take into account no matter like which kind of goal you are choosing for that moment. So basically the first one is view count. Of course, it's the number of times people viewed your video in general. In this case, you need to take into account that, for example, YouTube is counting the views after watching 30 minutes. And for example, Facebook is counting after watching 3 minutes. So you need to take this into account when you are seeing the views in different platforms. But I would suggest not be so obsessed with views, because of course reach is good, but it's not the best way to measure your success. You can have 10,000 views but not one time sell your product. So basically it's just a way of measuring, but not the best one. The second way is maybe social shares, because whenever you are creating, as we talked about storytelling, whenever you are creating a good story, people of course would share it, and the sharing giving you possibility for your video to go viral. So that's the best way. For this case, I would suggest just to take into account on your story what you are creating, make it very educational, entertaining, emotional, and unique, of course, so people could be interesting to share it. Maybe our listeners, let's say, have realized that the videos that have more social impact or brand awareness or anything like this is more shareable. So this is because people are more connected to the story that the video is giving them. That's why they could share it with their audience as well and want to make this video to be heard and to be seen from the other people, from their friends. The other way is to measuring your success is engagement. It's of course how many views, how many people watched, rewatched, or stopped watching your videos. So in this case, engagement is a good way to understand that people understood what you are giving them. They were so interested to hear. And for this, it would be really good to keep your content very short and clear, so people can be so much engaged with it. And it's better to just remove all unnecessary content that you are providing and just concentrate on the most important parts. If your videos are long, for example, for a YouTube channel, would be really good to have graphics in it, so people could be interesting and not worried in the middle of the speech. and give new information, informative content, so they can be they can be not worried to hear that. And of course, we say also that your host, the speaker, need to be very engaging, because the person that talks in the video is so much important for people. If they see this person very let's say adorable, they could hear till the end of the video. The other way is click-through rate. Of course, this is the percentage of viewers that click on the call to action button in the end. So for this case, it would be really good to make your story interesting from the beginning to the end, so people could hear the call to action and click and make actions after watching it. The last two actually measuring points, let's say for me, are the best ones, because they actually giving more opinion that your video was successful. Is the conversion rate. It's let's say how many leads and customers you got after they have watched your video. The only problem is it's so difficult to let's say count the conversion rate, because you need to use other analytics softwares. Not just the social media channels will not give you the full understanding of this, but you can also ask for your clients from where they came. If they came from video, it's of course a good sense that your video was working in social media channel. And the last one is the feedback. Of course, all social media channels have a comment section, and people can leave their comments in there. And of course, not only positive comments, sometimes that comments could be negative, but it's good because you are learning mostly from negative comments, and you need to always give, let's say, a humble opinion, and always be grateful, even if the comment is negative. And whenever, if they are not leaving a comment, always ask to your relatives, to your friends, to your colleagues to give a feedback of your video, because they most likely will comment you from client point of view, and you were all the time in the video, maybe you are seeing that from the other angle, but they can see it from the angle that could give you more understanding of was it really helpful or not. So just to sum up, if our listeners are to video marketing, I would suggest to not focusing on all the metrics at the same time. Just pick up the ones that actually would be helpful for your specific goal, and concentrate only on achieving your specific goals, not just getting all these, let's say, measuring points in the best way.
I think that's really interesting and really useful. And the relation to social media, I just wanted to pick up on that, because especially the talk around social shares and engagement and stuff like that, there's been something doing the rounds on Instagram for the past couple of months that says Instagram is changing the algorithm on what it prioritizes. Now the kind of top interaction you can get is if someone saves your content, and then it's put that like is the fourth most important thing. That, I'm sorry to burst anyone's bubble, at the moment is fake news. There's nothing that actually Instagram have released to say that. There's nothing that actually, when you review the algorithms, suggests that at all. It's just something that's been created. However, I do believe this save is growing in gravitas, and that, you know, creating content that people will come back to is certainly going to increase. But don't take these things you see, you know, at face value, because I'm sure everyone will have seen that doing the rounds and now think, oh gosh, I've got to create content that people are going to want to save. For some sectors that just may never be possible. You know, if you're in a fast moving environment, it's here today, gone tomorrow. You're not going to create things that people are going to save and come back to. So it's always going to be about what's relevant to your audience and to the type of content you're putting out. So actually, if you're creating content and you're creating a story based on all the things we've spoken about earlier, you know, that's really specific to your audience, then your measurement tools will always end up being specific to your audience as well, and how they like to engage, and depending what you've created. So if you've created a very cinematic movie style video that you want everyone to see, and it's about brand awareness, then views are going to be more important than if you've invested in video specifically to demonstrate a product. You know, at that point, then the sales is going to be a more important metric. So it really does come down to what it is that you actually are promoting, and then looking at what metrics are going to be most valuable for you. But you know, certainly the Instagram thing, obviously we've seen Instagram are removing likes now, so you can't always see the number of likes. That's more come off the back of, you know, mental health issues, and you know, issues around social validation and people feeling the need to, you know, get likes, and whether we should be in a likes environment anymore. But it doesn't mean for businesses straight away that that's no longer a metric you should be measuring. But there's other things you can look at in terms of your followers and your engagement, and if you're getting inquiries off the back of it, and everything like that. I mean, for us, we create a lot of video content in short formats. We create reels and TikToks, and you know, it's nice to see the views, but actually, like what you've said, Anush, the thing that's most valuable for us is people come and give us feedback, and people go, oh, I've seen your TikToks, you know, even if they've not said it to us in person, they turn up to a meeting and they go, oh, I love what you guys are doing, or they say out on the phone, oh, I've seen your reels, I've seen your TikTok. So that lets us know that it's working. So, you know, if we'd have looked at views alone, that wouldn't have given us the full picture.
I think that's also encouraging you to create more content, because when you're hearing a positive feedback, you just want to do more, just to share more of what these funny and cool videos that you're creating. I actually like a lot, and I'm watching all of your Instagram reels and stories. So basically, just continue doing that.
Oh, good. I'm glad it's working.
Yeah, you're on our TikTok of mine. Even though I don't share anything on TikTok, I'm following a lot of what you guys are doing, which is fantastic. But I guess from our perspective, for anyone listening, that they're spending money into PPC, into SEO, into paid social elements, you know, not only do we look at all those, you know, I'd call them top line metrics in terms of engagement, because those metrics that you two have both just gone through from a video and just from a generic organic is key when we're looking at different types of ad types. And I know in the show, going to talk a little bit more about different ad types. But you know, it lets us know how well a particular ad is engaging with the type of audience. Is that messaging right with that audience? But there's a whole different element. And what we say here at Bobble is, you know, each one size doesn't fit all. So each company is different, and so should media be in terms of when you're tracking and attributing ROI. There's so many different businesses, whether you're B2C or B2B, that have different conversion points. And it all comes down to ROI, specifically when you're focusing on media. So just to give you a couple of examples, if you're an e-commerce client, we're not just looking at purchases, we're looking at the full user journey to understand how things are performing at different touch points. And it's those different touch points from different channels that are very, very important, that you need to be tracking and looking into. Tools like Google Analytics will help you identify that, but in-platform data will help you really, really analyze. And that's why it's really important to make sure that your pixel and conversion metrics within platforms like Google Ads and Facebook are implemented correctly on site. The key element for that is when you're an e-commerce client, and we're working with a client recently, we identified that the audience targeting was good, the messaging was good, because the ad to basket value was 17 times the level of spend in terms of revenue. So for every £1,000 they were spending on media, the basket value was £17,000. However, what we noticed was that that's just basket value. You would expect a high percentage of them to increase. Their actual basket value was half of the actual media spend. So that was around about 2.5% conversion rate, not just from spend to actual purchase value, but actual added to basket value to actual purchase. It's elements like this and understanding how that conversion model is working that helps you identify which stage, from storytelling to creating the ad to the strategy that comes before it, all to through to executing different channels where we know your audiences are, through to then tracking the impact of that message and how that is being conveyed, whether it's video, emotional, or communicating that message in terms of how it's impacting. Because you might get all that right, but if your physical presence is missing something at the final stage that's converting your customers and driving that ROI, it's important to break down your measurement into different stages. So by just looking at one conversion point is never good. So some clients work on like cost per lead. So they look at how many leads come in, but then we're like, well, we could drive you 100 leads through Facebook and only 10 through LinkedIn. What is the value of that lead? How many of them actually responding? How many of them actually booked in for a call or a demo? How many of them actually then got to the second stage and are in a position to actually sign a contract? What is the total value of that contract? Because then what you get is from 10, you know that for every 10 leads you drive, you know you're going to convert 2. So you got a 20% conversion rate. Or you know that 4 of them are going to go and book a demo. From the ones that book a demo, you know 1 out of 4 that book a demo then become a customer. So then you've got a cost per lead, cost per demo, and cost per acquisition overall. And breaking it down to different segments and different tiers is very, very important for you as businesses to understand the total value of what's going on. Because a lot of clients come back saying, well, we're driving a lot of leads and not converting. You need to look at it into granular detail. Start creating models internally as businesses to understand what are the different stages that your business, whether it's B2B or B2C, offer to a consumer's journey. It'll help you identify other things to do to adapt the strategy. And we're going to talk about adapting the strategy clearly, because if you realize your messaging is working, but then your online website isn't working as well, then you need to adapt the messaging on your website in line with what's going on with your actual ads. Or if you realize the engagement's low in terms of what's happening and the add to basket value is low, which isn't resulting to the actual conversion value, then you need to relook at the messaging and adapt it in that way.
Yeah, and I think the adapting strategy piece is really important, because we've spoken a lot about creating a strategy and, you know, defining all these elements, but that shouldn't discourage people from changing it. You know, you can change, you can adapt. Economic factors change, environmental factors change. You may release new products, you may find some things working, not working, and certainly I think the reporting and the data metric side is so important to inform decisions around whether your strategy needs adapting. And that's certainly, we use metrics to look at what is working, what isn't, so we can go, do you know what, that area for you is not working right now, or maybe it is working but you need to put more budget into it, and that budget wasn't initially accounted for within the strategy, but it's going to need more putting into. So those data points and having as many different metrics as possible to review are really, really important in terms of the longevity of your strategy, because where you start inevitably will not be where you end up. But it, you know, you have to get started with somewhere, and hopefully we've given you a lot of tools that will encourage you to go out and get started. But it's really important to use metrics to continually review and to go back and go, do I need to pivot, do I need to invest more, invest less, change what I'm doing, launch a new product, etc., whatever it may be. So don't be discouraged if you have to change your strategy, because that's just part and parcel of it.
And overall, to Sada, actually, not all the contents that you are creating are working for all companies. So basically, for each of them, it could be unique. So you need to try yours all the time, see the metrics, and then understand what to try again. So you just can't let's say, count on that. If it works for another company, it would work for myself as well. I actually last time didn't manage to talk also about one of the important, let's say, aspects of video marketing strategy. It's the types and format of the videos, because you may have everything ready, but you need to also at the end understand what to create to get your goals achieved. So that's why I wanted to talk. Of course, there are a lot of ways and types and formats of the videos nowadays, but I have picked just several of them and want to share with you, so you, whenever you are in that situation, you could understand that, okay, this is the best type for me to choose. So to talk, let's say, about the formats, because first of all, we, let's say, share the videos into really big 3 formats. It's the animated videos, it's the live action videos, and of course hybrid videos. So hybrid videos are the mix of live action and animation. At Burnley, we also, let's say, separate the 4th format. We call it motion graphics. And the differences between the animation and motion graphics is that animated format is based on illustrations, and the motion graphics format is based on graphic design. So basically, it's just two differences, but two of them, let's say, are at the end created with the animated format. So for digital videos, we usually do not suggest to use just live videos because it is already not working really well. You always need to have some motion graphics and typography in your videos to grab attention and just be a bit different from your competitors. So depending on your goals and of course on your target audience, the format could be, you can choose differently, because for example, last time I said that animated videos are not working really good for seniors because they don't really understand it. They see it like maybe a cartoon more than let's say a video, a commercial video. But in opposite to this, youth are like and really adore animated videos. So if your target audience are youth people, you can always consider having animated videos, especially with cute characters in it. Working many years actually in this industry shows me that, for example, promo videos, which you're using for social media or for any other platform, need to be in hybrid format, because in any case, lives and motion graphics together are grabbing clients' attention very much, especially if you are using like big text, fast movements, and these kind of things to psychologically affect to your client's attention. And I want to say that one of the, let's say, popular types nowadays are explainer videos. They are helping a lot clients to explain their most complicated ideas. No matter in which industry you are, you can always consider having explainer videos, especially on your website, because those people, your visitors, when they are entering to your website, is the best way to have full understanding of who you are, what you are creating, how you will help your clients, what's the problem that you are giving a solution, and don't, let's say, force them to read all this long text on your website to understand about your product. Explainers can be in different formats, so we can choose animated, we can choose live action, no matter. But when we are choosing animated video, animated explainers, it giving us the endless possibilities to create whatever we want. Even if your product is not ready, we can create the animated version of it and show clients what they can get whenever your whenever your product is ready. I talked a bit about promo videos, but I want to also add that they need to be so short, easy to understand, and just catch the eye. Especially for social media channels, 15-second videos are working the best. There is also another type, demo videos, for example, which are helping you to demonstrate your product in action. So whenever you have, let's say, a physical product, it's good to shoot a live video of your physical product, show how it works. Whenever it's a platform, for example, you can create a motion graphics version of it and show how your platform is actually working. These demo videos are helping you to get more trust from your customers because they don't see your product in action, so they can't trust it. But whenever they see it, how it works, they get more trust, so are most likely to buy it. It's the same thing when you are shopping online. Whenever you see someone wearing that t-shirt, for example, most likely they see how it will look like on them as well and could buy it. But whenever I'm just seeing that there is no demonstration of a product, I can't trust it to buy it. The last the type for today I want to talk is the testimonial videos, which are really good, especially when you want to show your potential clients what your current clients are thinking about your video, about your service and product. So it's not necessarily to have testimonials on the interview style. You can have just the recording of your client's voice and then create the animation version of it. So you can be very creative on this. This could help you to make your potential customers trust whatever they heard about your current clients. And whatever type you choose, just remember that social media videos also are the best one to always consider. All these stories, reels, TikTok videos, everything. We call it actually also bite-sized videos because they are short and they are very appealing and could grab attention of your clients and be interested, just engage with your content. So whenever and whatever product you choose, just always choose that specific type which will lead you to your goal, to achieving your goal. Never create, for example, tutorial videos if you want to do a promo. Like, don't show what features you have if clients never heard about you. It's the first time they are hearing about you. And the last thing I want to talk about today is the timeline. So whenever you have already all your social video marketing strategy ready, you always need to also consider about timeline, because video production is a huge work, starting from pre-production, production, and post-production. So you need to maybe consult with your production company, with your in-house team, to understand how long will each video creation will took for yourself, just so you can create later a really good video marketing calendar and understand that this video need to be posted in today, for example, and in this timeline. So it's so important to also consider the timeline.
I guess that's where strategy is quite important. So when we go back to part one, we talked about obviously planning ahead with the type of creative. And I totally agree with everything Anusha just said. We see how businesses are adapting online post-pandemic. Lots of businesses have had to move all their stores online. You look at how well Amazon are doing, and a lot of businesses trying to mirror that in terms of having those product-based videos to adapt and convert. So this is why it's important to consider. Anyone who's listening to this podcast right now, watching us on YouTube, the two elements that we talked about across part one and part two is quite key, because there's so many different facets to strategy. When you've got your overarching strategy, as we discussed in part one, you've got to start breaking it down to different segments, and they all integrate, and the data and the measurements you get back from that, as we've broken down and discussed throughout both talks, is very, really key to help you understand and how to react and adapt that strategy. If you know you're driving people to site and the videos working on social, but they're not converting, they need to look at, well, how do I need to translate that video to, video ideas? If people aren't understanding your brand and not getting to your site, they need to go back to using stuff like the Garter model, understanding, right, what is the messaging and how do we tell a story and take people through? If we go back to part one, we talked a lot about obviously difference and the importance of strategy. And the importance of strategy is helping you understand as a business, no matter how large or small you are, whatever industry, or whether you're B2B or B2C, is helping you understand how to adapt and improve your strategy, because the consumer mindset has changed in the last 12 months significantly, and it's changed forever. Some of those elements will come back, but businesses are adapting within AI and technology to improve their online performance of their site, whether they're e-commerce or looking at new ways to adapt to reach other businesses. We do a lot of our communication through video now. We know that a lot of actual employees won't be going back to offices. So the general landscape has changed significantly. And that's adapting how businesses run and operate. And if your business is adapting at that level, it has to adapt its marketing strategy. And the only way to do that is by listening to the last two episodes, including this one we've done. Take the notes that we've discussed, follow the procedure. Remember, it's not an exact science. You might come up with a strategy and take on the notes and the models that we've discussed, but bear in mind that unless you analyze what you're doing and monitoring at different steps, you're not going to know where you went right or where things might have gone wrong to be able to go back to a particular point and say, right, we need to test this audience in two different ways. That's too broad. For example, we need to start breaking it down a bit more granular and create more granular content and storytelling for them. I think that kind of summarizes everything we've discussed. We have discussed a lot. I hope everybody listening has found that really, really valuable. Obviously, as I always do, thank you to obviously Claire and Anush, experts in their field. Do follow Claire and Anush on LinkedIn. They're always saying great content and video content in terms of educational, and do hit up Trio Media on TikTok if you haven't already. You can find all our previous recordings on www.bobblepod.co.uk, and we're excited for our next podcast because we have our first guest host to join us. And we've got a lot of guest hosts joining us for the rest of the year, which is going to really spice and improve things up. And yes, again, thank you for all our listeners. We hope you found this 2-part exercise very informing, and we look forward to bringing you some more great, valuable educational content in the future. So just for myself, thank you for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, and see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.